Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Sandy, Christina, and Karen. And today we're going to be talking about the topic intention because we are studying the book, The Wisdom of Sundays by Oprah Winfrey, and we're on chapter 2 discussing intention. But before we get going, I just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure and like this video, share it with anybody you think might find it interesting, and of course, subscribe to our channel so you'll be updated each time we upload a new video. We record these videos every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and if you'd like to participate, there'll be a link down below where you can join us in our Facebook group and find out all the details on participation. So, with that, guys, I want everybody to introduce themselves, and then we can get going on this conversation. So jump out.
I guess I'm already out. I might say something. I'm Karen Lohoff. I'm in the perpetual Valley of the Sun in the Phoenix area, and it is sunny.
I'm in the perpetual beach of the sun. That's my new name for Miami Beach. Happy to be here and continue the discussion.
What's up, everybody? Christina Irvin in Northeast Tennessee, and it is not perpetually sunny or hot or warm right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm right there with you, Christina. We're having snow and sleet and fun coldness up here. So a weird start to our beginning of spring, right, guys? So anyway, so last week we started our discussion with intuition on this chapter 2. And we had such a great topic, such a great conversation with all of our own insights that I feel like we didn't even really jump much into the chapter or into the audiobook. I mean, we did a little bit. We shared a little bit of our feelings on that, but I really want to kind of dig into it a little bit more because each of these chapters shares, Oprah discusses what she learned from multiple different people, and so they each share kind of an insight. If it's like a paragraph, not a paragraph, but like a page and a half or so long, where each person just shares their thoughts on the topic of the chapter. So, I'm thinking, Christina, you just have the audiobook version, right? Or did you end up getting the ebook?
Right. I just have the audio. It's no sense to me. Girl, you know I'm not going to read that book if I have to read it.
I got you. All right. So then I'll kind of count on you to bring out insights relating to the audiobook version. And I've got the ebook open here right on my computer as well. And Sandy's got the physical book, which is really cool. So you can show us the awesome pictures in there. And Karen, what version do you have? You're muted. Ooh, pretty.
I do not have one.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem.
Read my lips.
I shall not accumulate anything. Enough stuff, right? Okay, I gotcha. All right, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna start with this. Let's see here. The first person that has some comments in here is Gary Zukov, and I think that's what the audio version. That was her interview was with Gary Zukov, the author of The Seed of the Soul. Sorry, I had to look at the book real quick. And I think we discussed a lot of what was talked about last time with that. But does anybody else have any other thoughts? Who's read The Seed of the Soul? I have the book. I started it, but I never finished it. What anybody else have any insights on? Or did we not touch on something that was discussed in the audiobook version, Christina, that you want to kind of talk about before we?
It was the end. It was the very end of the chapter where he was talking, and I'll be honest with you, I just drew a blank. Like I literally said, bookmark, this is what I want to say on the call, and I've drawn a blank. It was the very end of his commentary on the chapter 2. Does anybody remember?
I actually viewed that a few months ago, the Super Soul Sunday. I happened to run across the video of it and saw it. And I had not known who Gary Zukav was before that time. And I remember thinking, it's crazy what the thoughts that we have in our minds. I don't know why I thought this. I find a lot of my thoughts curious, actually. But I saw him sitting there on stage with her, and I was thinking, well, I'm not going to get a lot out of this. And of course, I got a lot out of it. I got a whole lot out of it. But one of the things that stuck with me, maybe one of you who's read, or maybe this will spark in your mind, Christina, what came to your mind. He explained to her about his view of the soul, that we have. It's like if we're a fleet of ships out in the ocean. Now that I'm saying this, I realize, of course, that people watching and observing, people who know what's going on, and people who, like Oprah, kept his book beside their bedside for years, are going to say, man, she didn't get anything out of it. But the idea, if you're a fleet of ships in the ocean, you have a master ship. There's one that's going to lead out all the rest, or be in charge. Maybe it's going to be at the back. I don't know. But that's the soul of your fleet. And I thought that's really interesting, because I am curious, since I have a mastermind, and this comes from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and his sharing the whole idea of a mastermind. I have a mastermind of invisible counselors that includes my higher self, is one of the aspects. And so I am curious about things like the soul, and how you can compare that, how you can think about that in a way that's a little bit more serviceable to you than to simply mention in your life as you talk about it, my soul. To be able to think about, okay, my soul is in charge. So why is it in charge? What is it about my soul that puts it in charge of me and the various expressions of my life? So that's kind of my thoughts for the moment.
Are you still there, Christina? You look frozen. I'm wondering if she lost her internet connection.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. You were kind of, yeah, you weren't moving at all there for a second. I was like, okay. Did you hear everything Karen said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Must have been just on my end.
No, it's probably because I'm on my phone, so I was switching back and forth to go see if I could find what it was that I was thinking of. There were like two things that I was thinking of, but I was listening to Karen too. Although, I think one of the things that I was thinking of was that literally, the seed of the soul is really about being fueled from the energy within, that is driven from a place of giving. And it's kind of interesting, because I think back to a conference call that I had, with my mentor, and we were talking about, the concept of giving and receiving, and being balanced in your giving and receiving, and how we're taught at an early age that you have to give. It's better to give than to receive. However, I've come to understand that, really, quite honestly, it's not a matter of it's better to give than to receive, or it's better, but we are taught to discount how important receiving is, in such a way that if I'm receiving your love, if I'm receiving your guidance, if I'm receiving your consideration, if I'm receiving your respect, all of those things actually are fueling the soul within me, and actually sort of grows the desire to give and reciprocate those very same things. So, not that I'm disagreeing with Gary Zukav, But I have to say that in my experience, receiving makes me look to give even more.
I feel like, from what I was taught when I was younger, and of course I went to a Christian school for my entire childhood. And I feel like they they were teaching us to give, of course, but it made me feel like they were trying to tell us that we are not as important as everyone else. Like everyone else is what you're supposed to focus on, and you don't count. And and that never sat well with me. It just didn't make any sense. And when I started reading more books like this and started studying more, I realized that it is more, it's that you have to give to yourself first before you can give to anyone else. Because if you're not first giving to yourself, then you're not coming from the right space. And of course, then when we're sitting here and we're talking about intention, if our intention of giving comes from a space of that's because I'm supposed to do that and I don't count, or I'm not as important, or everyone else should be before me, then it comes from a space of fear of what everybody's going to think of me, or a space of fear of what, I think I'm supposed to do, or, rather than when we allow ourselves to become full, like for example, I'm not even talking about giving stuff so much. I'm talking about giving of our love, of our attention, of our time, our caring, all of those emotional things, that when we give those to ourselves first, then we have a natural tendency to have that overflow from ourselves to everyone else. And I think that I think that's kind of what they're trying to say, because if we have that intention of being more loving to ourselves, then we're naturally going to be more loving to other people. And if we have a more intention to be more giving to ourselves, the more accepting of ourselves, more what's the word I'm having more empathy for ourselves, all of those different things, is that naturally going to overflow into everyone and everything else in our lives. So that's kind of my thought. Anyone else have a thought? Should we move on to the next part?
No,
There you go.
I totally agree with you on starting with it with giving to yourself, which is another thing that we're not taught. It's we're taught that you're selfish if you're giving to yourself, and that's not a good thing. We're supposed to give to others. But yeah, it goes back to that airplane example of giving, putting the oxygen on our own face. And quite honestly, if in fact we are the very first example of how this world is to love us and to treat us, then it only makes sense that we would start with ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I've learned other things as well along that lines, because when I started really, and it's funny because we sit here, we say, I'm being more loving and caring to myself, or I'm doing more for myself. And of course it sounds selfish, right? But in reality, it makes so much more sense, because it changes everything. And but on the other aspect of it is then when we talk about giving to ourselves of other things, like for example, when I started this financial program earlier last year, which just has blown my mind since I started doing it. And it was something as simple, that you probably heard that whole pay yourself first thing, versus, so that you can set money aside and have it, be your retirement or whatever. And then I had also listened to an audio by Neil Donald Walsh. I think it was last year. Sandy had suggested it to us, and he was talking about getting the keys to the kingdom. It's when you start doing more of what you want, you end up with more of what you want, you know? And so this whole financial aspect to it, it dawned on me one day. I'm like, well, you know, maybe I have this like whole struggle within myself of financial side of it. I'm like, but once I started giving to myself financially, then now all of a sudden I am more financially secure. I mean, it seems so stupid, but for me, it's like a big breakthrough. I don't know why. It just like, you know, and I think that a lot of people struggle with finances, and it seems so silly that, you know, if you just give to yourself first financially versus all that other stuff you think you're supposed to, that you actually end up saving yourself in that aspect. And I don't know, that was a breakthrough for me. It's silly, but it's important, I feel like.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's interesting that you say it's silly, and that kind of jarred me into sharing something I guess I'm not totally sure that I'm comfortable sharing. I actually was awakened about 5:30 this morning by my brother, one of my brothers, giving me a call, and he and his wife were on their way looking at a boring and lengthy drive, you know, of seeing nothing, and so they decided to give me a call and talk with me. And this aspect of things was brought up, and so it's probably more on my mind than it would otherwise be, and that is the subject of tithing. And many of us have through our various religions, churches, whatever, uh, developed an idea of that we should tithe our monies. And I've never been really particularly good at that. I my 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 outlook has always been I never have enough money to tithe. I if I tithe, then I can't eat. You know, if I tithe, then I can't, you know, this or that or the other thing. And that's what was brought up with this story that my brother was sharing with me, is the difference between someone who has that attitude and someone who has the attitude of, you know, that the blessings that they receive in life, the good that they receive, and the overage that they receive is a result of their paying a full tithe and doing it, you know, willingly and desirably. And I thought I had read something recently that really changed my view of things. And it was that if you have never tithed and you know that that is something that you want to do and you feel like you can't. I mean, some of us live pretty sparingly as it is, and you know, to fit in another tenth of anything is still a chunk. And the idea was tithe to yourself. And I thought, tithe to myself, you know, that's a long, long way from considering tithing to God, you know. Let's see, tithe me, tithe God, which should I do? And as I read more about it, I thought, this is really interesting, because if I allow myself to tithe to myself until, for example, I don't know that I'm really willing to share that example, but there is an example that I have in my life. There's something that's really keeping me from doing something that I need to do that's important and valuable and would help other people's lives if I would just do it, if I would just take the money and make it available to myself, and so I could accomplish it. So let's say I pay tithing to myself and I accomplish that and I get it done, and I free the way then for me to have more money, and I free the way then for those who are reaching out to me and concerned about me and helpful to me to be able to turn their concerns back to their families, to themselves. what a good thing that could be. And so as you talk, Samantha, about, yes, this is the natural starting point, I can see it from a different place, and it is not a selfish place. It is not selfish to do that for myself, to get myself out of the way. I don't know if I've made any sense at all.
Yes, makes sense. Totally. I was in that place a long time ago, not a long time ago actually, but when after I graduated from acupuncture school, and I was broke, and I was reading like different financial things of how to like get it all together, and I was avoiding everything, looking at everything about money. I'm like, I can't deal. I don't want to know what I have in debt. I don't want to know anything. And I just put the covers on, and then one day I'm like, okay, I have to deal with this. And it was scary, but then I had no money to tithe myself, but this one guy recommended it. He's like, it doesn't matter what state you're in, give yourself the money. And I realized over time that it changed my mindset. I didn't know that it was happening, but looking back at it, it made me that I'm important. I come first, no matter what's going on with my money. The creditors can wait. The IRS can wait. Everybody can wait. I need to take care of myself first. And it's scary because, in that time too, I was getting phone calls every day from everything, collecting money. But over time, I saw how other financial things were starting to work out for me because I was paying myself first. And there was a day where I'm like, I really needed money. And I went into my savings that I had tied to myself. And when I spent that money, all the financial stuff around me started falling apart again. It was bizarre because it's all energy. So once I was tithing to myself, doors were opening. Once I used that money, it was like things started crumbling again. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So it's super powerful. It really is. And it seems like something simple and like, well, I don't have the money, but once we do it, it's like the universe opens up things for you to be able to pay what you need to pay and for your needs and everything. So I think it's powerful and magical, and it can be scary when it seems like we don't have the funds to do it, but just hold on, and it's magical. It really is.
I think there was two other kind of good points that he, was Gary Zukav was giving in the interview, and one of them, and y'all's discussion about money kind of made me think about the topic where he was discussing cultivating your authentic power and how to cultivate your authentic power. And that actually has been something that I've been exploring, what my authentic power is for a while now. And so I wonder what you guys think about that. He was basically talking about, essentially, we spend so much time reacting to the world and to our environment, right? So if you spend less time reacting, right, and in the moment when something's going on, rather than initially respond, because again, that's another thing we're taught. If you don't immediately respond to something, then you don't care, you're aloof or whatever. Like, you have to have an immediate response to stuff. But in the moment, if you take a beat and get still, then if you take a beat, get still, and turn inward, then that creates just enough space between the thing and the next moment that you can connect with your intention, and then you can connect with kind of that intuition, your God voice. And then you have an authentic power, because then once you get back connected with your intention, then it's like that next step is obvious what to take. That next step is more authentically you than if you just responded in that moment. I wonder what you guys think about that.
I think that's super powerful. I was actually at a class I was in recently, we had touched on this, and I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Oh, the teacher was talking about, how he had gotten an email from somebody, and it was sort of nasty in a way, or he perceived it as like, this is, I don't know, this is pissing me off. Like, I just want to write back, blah, 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 right away. And I know that I tend to be like that. Like, when something comes at me, I want to respond right away, whether it's good or bad. But it's something I've had to practice. Like, when there's that reaction of like, this person's wrong and I'm right, and responding right away, that it ends up making things worse. And really, it's so important to take that step back and, okay, leave that message for now, come back to it in a few hours, tomorrow, whatever. Take the time to really simmer down, and look at it, setting an intention, and taking the time to see where maybe this other person may be coming from, instead of what our mind automatically, reactively thinks in its defense mode, So I think it changes everything when you take, even if it's a moment to just connect back to yourself and what your intention is, and it helps you to respond in the proper way that is best for you and the other person, or whoever or whatever's involved. Makes a huge difference, I've found. So it's really something that I've started over the past year, probably trying to cultivate, like, rather than reacting right away to something, to really step back, breathe, take some moments to myself, and it changes the interaction in a big way when you do that. Definitely, rather than reacting. And it's so easy to react. So you have to, like, okay, hold me down, hold myself down.
I have to say that since the primaries of the last presidential election began to today, there has been no greater teacher for me in taking a beat, turning inward before I respond. Trying to voice what I'm saying without being overly political, but needless to say that this season of tribalism and extremism and just absolute neurotic behavior, it's just been the best teacher for me. Otherwise, I would be in a very bad space. This is very difficult to communicate without expressing your specific feelings, but you get what I'm saying.
No, I totally get it. And that's, it's, I want to say it, but I don't want to say it, because some people may think, well, she's crazy, like, because whatever is happening in our planet right now, in our country, it's making people wake up and really grow. And so it is, like a blessing in disguise in a way, sort of, because if it was just going easy peasy, people would be like, la, 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 laid back. But this is making people, like, get up, be aware, see what's going on, and really work through their stuff, because this is all about us too. So it's a powerful time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it's effectively started to expose an element of humanity that clearly has not been exhibited in a long time.
I think it's a great point that you mentioned, that taking a pause before you react, because that's where our power is. I mean, that's exactly where it is. And whether we're talking about reacting to something that we see online or on TV or in our own household, whether it's something that your spouse does or your children, whatever it is taking that pause and refocusing on where you're coming from, that intention behind everything. And a lot of times I have discovered that when I have like an immediate reaction to something, it comes out of a place of fear. And I'm not talking about like, obviously we all have fears that we're afraid of, but I'm talking about the difference between love and fear, the base feelings inside of ourselves. And if we react with love, then it changes everything. So for example, and I'll give this is just a little tiny thing that happened in my household recently. And so I discovered that my husband was using my toothbrush, right? Okay. And it's a little thing. It's just a little thing. He didn't realize he was using mine. I didn't realize it until this one day. And of course, this had probably been going on for a while. And my first reaction was that I wanted to run downstairs and smack him in the face and be like, "What the hell are you using my sand?" Right? And freak out about it. But, I paused for a second and I'm like, okay, it's what's done is done, and how do I want to proceed? Do I want to go downstairs and get into a big argument because the whole fear side of it? Oh my God, germs. My husband was sick at the time, by the way, when I found this out. And, do I want to go downstairs and be mad and just like give him a hard time and rip his head off and all that kind of thing? Or am I going to come from a place of, love, where I realize that I could have been using his toothbrush all along. I don't remember, it could have been either way, and instead of, I did mention it to him, but I didn't like rip his head off over the whole situation because, I wanted to come from a place of love instead, versus a place of critical everything. And, so it's little things like that, whatever it is that you're faced with. And when we're talking about the big things in life, whether it's the political environment or, the things that are going on in the Middle East, if it's these shootings and all of this stuff, is that when, in the previous chapter, we had, the audio interview was with Michael Singer and he wrote the book, The Surrender Experiment, and what was the other one? I haven't read it, so I can't remember the name of it. Some other one. Anyway, and he was talking about that when these things come up and they cause that voice in your head to come up with all these reasons you're angry or upset or fearful or whatever, is that you lean away from that, take that moment, if you will, and step into your deeper, your higher, your peaceful self, and choose the reaction that you're going to have, whether you're going to have this reaction out of upset or whether you're going to have a reaction out of, okay, my real goal here is that I want to have a peaceful and happy life. So I choose that I'm going to react in a in more of a peaceful and happy way, and versus reacting in a negative and angry and fearful and everything else way. So that's my thought on that.
That's the perfect lead into like the next thing that I was thinking that Gary Zukav gave. How many times have I expressed that this chapter is the chapter for me? Like, for real. So Gary Zukav was saying that, the measure of where you are in your spiritual journey is identified in recognizing the distance, because we're all just naturally seated with compassion and love and forgiveness and empathy and all those kind of things, right? So the journey of where you are, your spiritual journey, the measure of that spiritual journey and where you need to, where you're striving to be, is really in how you think you are versus how you are actually acting and responding and speaking and behaving. So I have the intention of being a compassionate person, but in the very first opportunity I get to show compassion, I respond out of fear and anger. Then that shows like the schism between my journey of compassion and where I actually am. You know what I mean? And for me, even the other day, my fiance did something that, Lord, that in the past has been an indicator of a behavior that frustrated the heck out of me, and made me feel distrustful and like there's got to be more to the story kind of thing, you know? And it's kind of weird because that in that moment when my fiance did that, it was about me, right? In that moment, and this is how I know that I'm cultivating my authentic power and I'm growing in that, because in that moment I stopped and I recognized that it had nothing to do with my fiance at all, but it was that this is an area, um, the distrusting area, because in my life I've spent my entire life around building up brick walls around myself so that I can protect my heart, so that I can protect, how I'm anybody's ability to be able to hurt me. And there's a subconscious reality in the back of my mind of, oh shit, excuse my language, but literally, like, even though we've been together for 17 years, there's like this whole, like, this is getting really real because we are now engaged and this is getting really real. And so in that moment, I recognize, okay, this is where my growth is. This is where this is where I can concentrate some area in my growth, because I still have that feeling with the world. It's not got anything to do with my fiance. It's got to do with there still being a part of me that is under some crazy false notion that I can in any way avoid any kind of pain if I don't let anybody too close, right? And I think that was so amazing. But again, another factor of cultivating my authentic power is being able to stop in that moment, turn inward and take a beat and be able to be like, babe, I'm so sorry. Like, that ain't have nothing to do with you. That's about me, right? And explore myself. And I wonder what you guys think about that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what relationships are for. At least that's what I've discovered. I mean, my husband and I, we've been together for, God, 20, how long have we been together now? How old are you? 20, okay, so 21 years we've been together. 25, sorry, 25, because he just sorry. We got together when he turned 24. That's how I remember. And he just turned 50 this year. So 26 years. Is that right? Am I counting right? I don't know. Anyway, we've been together a long time. And and we've been through a lot of shit over the years. I mean, we really have. And in the first 2/3 of it was struggle between both of us. I mean, and when we have our moments, here and now, because there's still things that come up, but I mean, we went through a lot of shit and struggled through a lot of things because of the hurts that we both have had in our past, because of the experiences that we've had and the ways that we were reacting to each other because of that past bullshit, and but once I started to realize that I didn't have to keep reacting that way, and I could start working on those things within myself, as recognize my 100% responsibility for my own feelings, my own experiences, my own everything, regardless of everything that's going on in my life, is that instead of blaming him for everything I was feeling, I was taking responsibility for that. And now it's been a journey. It still is, because there's stuff that comes up that I'm not prepared for, that comes from deep inside of myself, and then I don't recognize it right away, or I don't take that pause, if you will, and but the more that I'm able to take that pause and decide, where I want to go, what intention do I have in this relationship, then, and follow that, then the smoother things are and the easier it is. And I wanted to touch on something you said. You were talking about that false notion of being able to avoid the pain. And what's interesting to me is that when we take that moment, when we step out of whatever it is that's wanting to give us that immediate reaction, is that we actually do remove ourselves. We can avoid, it's not even really avoiding the pain, it's recognizing that this is a thing that we are reacting to because of something else. And when we're able to do that, that you don't feel the pain, because it's not painful anymore, because you realize what's going on, and you take yourself out of it, and you realize, you're like, I can just be love. I can experience love because I can be love. I can give myself love for all this crap that happened in the past, and know that all that is just crap and it's bullshit that's trying to mess with me. And I can move forward in love no matter what circumstances are happening right now, no matter what my spouse is doing, no matter what my children are doing, no matter what the world is doing, is that I can go forward without having that pain, because we are the ones causing our own pain. We're the ones that are causing that frustration, that anger, that fear, that everything. And when we pause to recognize what's going on, that's when we eliminate the pain. And that's my thought on it anyway. That's my experience.
No. I think that's really good. It actually made me, what you just said, yeah, that's really good. You know how when something hits you again on another level, that was really good, Smith. I think though, as an added layer to that for me is because I'm such a look, the topic is real woo woo, right? And I have a very realistic approach to woo woo. Like, there's only so much woo. Like, I can get to the woo, but I'm not going to ever. I never seem to get to the second woo. Right? I'm a first level woo chick. And so, for me, what you said rings home, and I think it's not that the thing, whatever the thing might have triggered in me, the emotion, whether it be fear, anger, frustration, whatever, it's not that that those things don't exist in the world, right? But it's that my intention of experiencing it, meaning my intention is to meet it with a balance, has been kind of offset in the moment. And then I have a choice to reconnect with my intention, or ride whatever that emotion is. And oftentimes, the emotion is going to be much more extreme, much more heavy. It has to be. Because if we go to the laws of physics, right, everything has an equal and opposite reaction, and everything in motion stays in motion until acted upon by an outside force, right? So in order for me to be going along in my intention and be good, and something throw me off of that line, it's going to have to be a more extreme something, right? Like I'm dissecting this in the moment as I'm talking, and like it's hitting me on a level right here. I wish I could express how this is hitting me. So literally, I feel like that just gives me that opportunity to reconnect again. And it's not that I guess the point that I'm trying to convey is that I think it unrealistic to suggest that we can always live in this happy space, in this fulfilled space, as if there are no other realm of our experience as possible. That's what it suggests to me, to expect that we could always live that way. So for me, I'm giving myself permission not to always be in that space, because authentically, it doesn't always feel happy. It doesn't always feel love. It doesn't always feel empowering. But my initial intention to experience life that way will often give me the wisdom to explore the white space there. So it gives me the wisdom to say, oh, like right now I'm feeling resentment. Why am I feeling resentment? And usually I find that I'm feeling resentment towards a person or a thing that has not a doggone thing to do with this very moment, but has something to do with an unresolved experience 10 years ago. So the power in that is overwhelming, because that's my growth space. That's my healing space. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me give another example of, of course, my daughter moved to South Carolina at the beginning of December. And emotionally, I'm very not happy about the fact that she's that far away, and, and I could allow myself to go into a deep depression and upset over the situation by going, it's not fair. It sucks. I don't like the fact that she's down there. I'm this, I'm that. I could go and I could lament on and on and on about all the reasons why, I should be upset that she is down there and I'm up here. Or I can take responsibility for the fact that, okay, yes, she's moved down there. I accept that. I can take responsibility for the fact that I am purposely making myself miserable by telling myself all these reasons why. Or I can also sit here and say, okay, now I have a choice here. Okay, I have a choice as to whether or not I'm going to be separated from my daughter. I have 100% choice. I am the power in my life, and I have this choice. I can be separated from her by staying up here with my husband and being a spouse to him, or I can take my ass into my car and I can drive down there and camp out on her freaking couch. I could do that if I wanted to. This is my choice. If I don't want to be separated from her, I have a choice. And by taking that 100% responsibility for where I am in my life and the choice that I am making to stay here versus follow her down there, then I allow myself that control. That's a huge thing. I feel like a lot of times in our lives, we feel like we don't have any control over a situation. And granted, I don't have any control over her moving down there. Try as I might try to get her not to, in a loving way where I encouraged her to be her own self and do her own life. And I want her to have her own life adventures. At the same time, I'm like, but I'd really like you to stay, I have that control. And when you recognize you actually have control over your life and you're actually making a choice to be in the situation that you're in right now, then you have power. I mean, and another example, like this whole political situation, okay? We can sit here and we can see this stuff that's going on the internet and on the news and everything else, and we can get upset about it. And we can talk about all the reasons why we're upset about it. We can be mad because of this, mad because of that, da, 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 da. But when you take 100% responsibility for your own self and this situation and your relationship to it, you can say, okay, I don't like the fact that blah, 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 blah. But if I really, really, really wanted to do something about it, I could get off my ass, get in my car, drive down there, and start working on making a bill or pushing people. I could write letters, I could do this, I could do that, I could do all these things to try and get the change the way that I want it to be. But the fact is, I don't want to do that stuff because my focus is on this area of my life. And this is what is most important to me in this moment. And yeah, this stuff out here really sucks. I don't like it. I'm not happy about the situation. But I'm also not one of those people who wants to get up and be the person who makes the change. So when you take responsibility for that and you recognize, okay, this is me, then you can kind of let go of that and be like, okay, well, that really sucks. I can share my opinions here and there, and that's my way of working towards affecting that. But you can kind of recognize, okay, well, I really don't have that much right to be that upset about it because I'm not doing anything about it anyway. So, I don't know. It's just kind of my thought, because you create that power in yourself where you actually can take control of the situation and make a decision, a conscious decision. This is what I'm doing and why. And then, in my opinion, it eases that pain, because then instead of lamenting on about all the reasons why you're upset, you recognize you've made a choice to do something other than, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it's literally, if we could have everybody could just start doing that, accept your responsibility in stuff and your choice, and be good with your choice. Like, and choices are not all rosy all the time. There is a choice. You own your choice, right? I don't know that there's extremes to it. And I'm one of these people that always tends to try to find the middle. And I've been that person my entire life. I've always been like, well, I see the flip side, and it's not that I'm trying to find the middle because I'm uncomfortable with taking a stance or extremes, because, Lord, if you have known me in any kind of time, I don't have a problem with that. Love it. That's not my thing. But I think I naturally, like, nature innately understood balance before I consciously was aware of balance. And now that I'm consciously aware of balance, like, literally, back to what you were saying, this whole political stuff, all this stuff that's going on right now has made me reflect inward, such that I'm the first one to be like, okay, now wait a minute, Christina. All right, let's be clear. You're judging that person for their views, and you don't want to be judged for your views. So how can we have an honest dialogue such that my lived experience is at least validated as mine and heard, and I validate and hear yours? We don't have to agree on that, but if we can start getting to a point where we can at least share another lived experience, that moves us forward. So I've been much less judgy, or in the moment, I've put an intention out that I'm going to be conscious of my judgment. So now, in the moment when I am judging, I'm the first one to be like, I ain't even gonna lie, I'm judging right now. So let me go back and take a moment and think on this and, like, reflect, because how can I experience this without the judgment? And that has helped me be much less angry. Not angry, but it's helped me be much less resentful and closed off. I'm still open. I'm still inviting the dialogue. I'm still initiating the dialogue. And that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. It's such a huge thing, as just recognizing your own inner thing that's going on, so that you can work with versus work against in any situation. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour, guys. Anybody else want to share a final thought before we wrap up for today? I know, Sandy, you're about ready to leave town, aren't you? Going even warmer, huh? Down to the Keys.
Yeah, Keys. Great conversation. Feel better, Christina. Good to see you all.
Be safe in your travels. Great call today, y'all.
Thank you.
Karen, do you have anything you want to add? Jump out.
I'm finding it difficult to get my mouth to work, and I noticed that I actually have a little bit of it. It feels like, and it sounds like to me, and I noticed that observing myself, I seem to have a little bit of paralysis around around one side of my mouth. I just enjoy these so much. You know, it's like it's the center point of my week, which of course is strange since it's the end of the week. But it just seems that we accomplish things that I need for me every time that we meet, and I appreciate it so much. And I hope that it really does benefit others, at least to the extent that it benefits me. Uh, However, I would think that we would have more of us. There's still parts of us that are missing that I'd love to see here, and then of course it's always good to see and meet with new people too. So we encourage those who get on and listen and pay attention to the YouTube replays that join us physically, join us, let us see your faces, let us hear your voices, let us hear your thoughts. Thanks everybody, love you guys.
Thanks, Karen. All right, guys, for those of you who are still watching, or Sandy, did you have something else you want to add?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So those of you who are watching, please like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube so you know when we upload our next video. And then, of course, if you want to join us, jump to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That is the link into our Facebook group. And you'll find all the information about all our previous replays and everything. And you can jump on here and join us each week at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. So bye for now. See you next week.